We're here today because airline marketing and the airline industry, it's so incredibly interesting at the moment. Complexities that it has, the competitive landscape, subject to political changes, and it's extremely interesting to understand how internal dynamics can be the difference between success and temporary failure. So today, the discussion is going to be on the fact that we have on one side more data, more channels, and more tools than ever before. On the other side, we have more pressure for performance, more scrutiny, more budgets, more complexity in the decision making as well. My ambition today is to explore what is actually changing. So what is actually working, where are the biggest opportunities, and most importantly, what it means in practice for teams like yours. So we have Gauthier. Gauthier, I would love it if you could do a brief introduction of yourself first, and then Renaud.
Very good. Thanks, Federico. Thanks for hosting us today. I'm Gauthier Le Masne. I'm VP Digital Marketing for Air France. So my scope is worldwide, covering the digital marketing needs for brands such as Air France. Passion work for data, for digital, for advertising, and making sure that we make the best out of this great brand throughout the world.
Yes, I'm Renaud, and thank you for having the opportunity to talk together today. I am a partner at Ekimetrix. At Ekimetrix, what do? We develop and build AI solutions that help large corporations like Air France and others in the transportation space and beyond to make better decision making and also to grow their competitive edge. Especially in the sales and marketing and media space. And I'm specifically involved in all the transportation and travel industry.
There is something that I very selfishly would like to ask. Where do you personally see the biggest opportunities?
If I can start with that, I mean, today we see tremendous changes in the digital landscape. So every day we see news, we see digital evolution, we see the landscape of innovation, firing some new tools, some new opportunities. So already we are in a fast changing world in the airline industry for sure. Everything is changing, but combining the changes of airline industry and the changes of technology and new opportunities is for me something great, because every morning you wake up and you say, okay, well, my day will be different than yesterday. There will be some new things to explore, to develop, to see new opportunities. Clearly, that's today what I love about my job and my position. Every day is a night.
It's almost like there is an education process that you have to go through every day.
Absolutely.
You know.
And myself, I would say it's help Gauthier and his team and other CMOs from this fascinating industry that is mobility and transportation to solve some very complex equations. And in the space of airlines, it is definitely because it is driven by a lot of external changes, sometimes headwinds, sometimes tailwinds, but right now rather headwinds, I would say, on top of strong pressure on the cost side, because airlines, they operate with a huge cost basis, as you know, and still they need to optimize the brand metrics, the loading capacity and ramp up of the planes, the revenue management, and so on, the pricing and the customer database, the CRM program membership. So at the end, if they optimize every single levers in silo, okay, they will deliver the job. Our role on a day-to-day is to help them to have this unified view of like the aircraft cockpit, in fact, drive their decision on a day-to-day, and this is super exciting.
I love how the red thread that unifies everything that we do at the end of the day is not so much on the execution, which is extremely important, but it seems like decisions, first of all, are the first key in which we're trying to look for the right type of innovation. We're trying to look for the right type of going from decision to action is probably going to be the next step, and kind of raises interesting question: how much of performance today is actually limited not so much by strategy, but how fast we can decide. Where do you think this actually breaks down today in terms of decisions and agility? Is it in measurement? Is it decision-making speed? Is it execution? Where do you think, from your perspective, it lays, Gauthier?
Decision speed is more and more key when you put it in perspective of need of agility. So we have more and more data. There is more and more need for data because we need that every decision is data driven. And as Renaud mentioned, that we make the most of the investments that we have. So I see a clear shift from execution towards more looking at data, analyzing, and making sure that quite quickly we can take decision and measure the impact of the decisions very quickly. It's complex because we are in a world where buying a ticket takes some time. So it's difficult to see the impact of our actions directly on customer behavior, but we have more and more signals, and with technology we are able to assess faster if those signals are clearer and if our actions are good. So I see clearly the shift of analyzing the results of what we do in order to take lessons, adjust, or invest more in the actions which are delivering good results.
So it's almost like closed loop testing.
Absolutely.
So moving from idea to hypothesis, use an A/B testing playground to see what kind of signals do we get back. There is technology out there that is increasingly helping you, I guess, with loop. Renaud, what about you?
I think it's a kind of a rule of 80-20. The advice is always to, of course, be super agile in testing new things in a space like airlines where the customer journey is complex. The competitors are super active. So you have to be very agile, responsive, and test things and keep some budget to test those things and to make sure you are not out of the market. But on the contrary, that forces you to be super efficient on the 80 remaining % of your budget in marketing and media to be even more efficient that you should be, because you have this complex environment, this uncertainty on the market, this pressure on the operating costs, this pressure on renewing the fleet because your fleet is aging and so on, and there is a market share at stake. So I think, yeah, the 80% that you masterize and you are familiar with historically, super efficient on it, and save the 20% remaining to test and learn and see what's the importance of generative AI in the way travelers are preparing their trip right now, and something is booming in terms of customer experience. It is new. How do you avoid having a kind of blind spot in this space and letting your competitors take all the room before you?
Gauthier, I don't know if you wanted to add something to it.
And you need to address this evolution. So for me, you need to have different tools, different technologies in order to detect the different signals at different levels. So we see emerging different tools in order to see macroeconomic performance, see what's happening with the evolution of GDP or weather or geopolitics or the shift of offline versus online measurement. So very, very macro to the very granular performance of a channel like paid search or programmatic. And you need to make sure that you look at those different levels of analysis in a coherent way. And accept that you have these different levels of analysis that you need to combine in some ways. So that's why for me the environment and the work is changing, is because you need to take these multiple layers of analysis and data and combine them into a coherent strategy.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question that is kind of a fixation for me. In 99.9% of the cases that I see, no one, hardly ever anybody, thinks about the cost of doing nothing. Now, with regards to the changes that are happening at the moment and the decision that we need to make in this ever-changing environment, what do you think is the cost of doing nothing, Gauthier, both as us, as professionals, as well as the cost to our organizations? What are the first one or two things that come to mind to you?
I fully agree. Doing nothing today is kind of a luxury that we cannot afford. Changing so fast, continuing something that you did a year or 2 years ago, or even a few months ago, is making you more or less outdated. So that's why I strongly push my teams for test and learn, and also retest things that they have been tested a few months ago, which sometimes failed, but that you need to restart because the environment has changed, the tools have changed. So something which failed a few months ago can be reassessed and can be a success a few months later. So that's a spirit, I would say, of continuously ask yourself, can I do something in a different way? And that's also where you need those tools, because then you can compare things that you've tested a couple of months ago that you did put in the machine and the ROI was not so good. And then you can test it again and see if there is some changes in this ROI measurement. So today for me, the tech landscape and the measurement landscape definitely helps you do that. Multiple tries, multiple tests, multiple environment settings. That you can change in a glimpse of an eye, but certainly faster than what you could do 5-10 years ago.
Maybe I can add.
Renaud, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say on top of I fully agree with what has been said just before by Gauthier. I would say from a mere marketing mix modeling perspective that we deliver for companies like Air France and other transportation companies, the cost of doing nothing, you may sometimes have to pay it twice, because you will pay on the short-term basis, or obviously the incrementality part of your business that you will not get during the next 3 months, in the case of airlines, but you will have to pay it the second time on the long-term perspective, because then your natural demand, your baseline that makes your day-to-day demand for your brand will erode over the time, and the cost of doing nothing is growing even much more than you thought it would initially. So that's why when we discuss with Gauthier, with our clients, we take always into consideration the long-term impact of doing nothing or doing things today, especially in the case of airlines. I think sometimes it's very much driven with digital levers that are more short-term oriented, and in some brands forget about the brand messaging, the brand marketing budget and campaigns that will build their long-term sales beyond what they bring on the short-term basis. Yes.
Understood. Focusing on the media side of things for 1 second and the advertising side of things. Right now, based on my experience and what I see both at NYU and working with Mint on the overall implementations that we do globally, I see that most organizations don't actually historically have been able to quantify what the cost of the delay is. It kind of goes back to your closed loop. And so how do you move today from having an idea to building an hypothesis to testing it in market and learning fast enough to act?
Today, I would always start with analysis of market needs. So trying to see which pockets of growth we can find. So, for example, for France, we started a couple of years ago with strategy of premiumization. We see that the premium market is growing. Second step is then how do we capture this growth? How do we target these potential customers and make efficient, so personalized and targeted campaigns to address this demand? So clearly that's the way we see things today, finding pocket of growth, targeting them, and then making sure that we see the results of what we are doing. we need to go in that order because we are in a slowly growing environment with fierce competition. So where we can grow, we need to address those new segments, so leisure business or people traveling for leisure in front cabins, for example, is for me the perfect example of new targets that you address in a kind of successful way.
And that's where the A/B testing, I guess,
Absolutely.
becomes extremely helpful, because then you know how much, then you know how, what kind of creative. So,
and then maybe the last step is starting small, and then seeing a success, and then expanding what you did at a larger scale of new markets, bigger investments, longer investments. So step by step, seeing a positive and successful strategy being industrialized in a way that then it's more automated and become a part of your daily routine.
Yeah, you said more automated, because right now what I was thinking this very second is it's easier said than done. In the sense that those 3 steps that you've said, they have so much internal communication, so much reporting, so much decisions that need to be made all the time, so much information that flows into different teams. So it's a bit of a interesting moving target that Mint as an organization addresses, and I think successfully. So it's interesting you mentioned that.
And it means, as you said, that you need to have extremely strong relationships with the agency, with the creatives, with the branding teams, in order to make sure that when you want to address a new segment, you have everything, and that you align all those stakeholders to a common goal. That's sometimes taking a bit of time, but when you have this common vision, then I think you can move a bit faster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking at your results, you're obviously getting it right. So it's an ongoing journey. I'm sure that you feel that way, but you're definitely doing it right. So thank you. Renaud.
I was thinking about daily life for Gauthier at work, because it's a question of always reallocating. It's a matter of being able reallocating your investment on a day-to-day basis or weekly basis between customer pools, between you mentioned visit friends and families versus leisure versus business, but also between destinations, or between aircraft, depending on the loading rate and the loading ramp up, and be able to always to reschedule the media activation. So obviously it's changing every day, specifically right now in the context that we experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I was to choose a word for the conversation that I'm witnessing between you two, it would be agility, would be the key word that I'm thinking about it right now. Because once we get to a stage in which the tools allow us to make decisions, then the activation of those decisions is all based on agility. And it feels like the real constraint is not so much creativity. It's not even data. It's just the ability to continuously test and learn and adjust fast enough. Now, is there a way for you guys to quantify the way I don't know if you've ever done this exercise, the way to quantify these delayed decisions or budget staying too long in the wrong place?
I'm thinking about one topic we discussed earlier together, Gauthier, which is sometimes you may have some not lag in the decision, but even worse, some blind spots. I don't see or capture the full complexity of the picture. And I remember our discussion about, in a pure last click vision, you will attribute some sales and bookings to your flight aggregators, OTAs, or night travel agencies, or whatever, what we call meta search platforms. But the trigger may be not this channel of sales, which is indirect as a channels, I would say, but a brand campaign that has been seen by the traveler a week, 2 weeks earlier. And how do you, I would say, attribute a booking to the right channel? Here we are mentioning on one hand, indirect sales channels, and on the other hand, brand own channels. So sometimes it's this complexity linked to the customer journey in the airline industry. It may create some blind spot, and we have worked a lot with innovative algorithm to clearly see if ROI of such booking is to be attributed by indirect or direct channels. And it is something quite challenging, I remember.
Correct. And as you mentioned, we have very long customer journey with multiple touch points, so it makes it difficult. Yeah, reassessing the weight of those different touch points in the customer journey is tough work, and it's a long one. So people, of course, for buying an airline ticket takes some time. So you need to make sure that the brand ad combined to some exposition on social media, on search, etc., is well taken into account. It might take some time. So there we need some help.
And this is something that I'm finding interesting, because I see a lot of change in the way brands and agencies start interacting with technology providers, because the knowledge that we require to get to the goals that are imposed by ourselves on us, it's so complex that we fully understand that we cannot possibly hire all the experts that we need to make sure that we hit a home run. I'm seeing a shift in the behaviors of people on how to work with technology buyers and media and agencies, and I think it's very healthy, because this is an ecosystemic change.
It might be also a bit of a strange evolution. We say that things are getting more and more technologic, that we rely on this technology to do more automation. And it leads actually to a more human-led business, where we need people to think, to interact with different stakeholders, and where this human touch of doing things in coordination is getting more and more important. So I'm not a believer of everything will be technology and we will all be replaced by machines. There is definitely a change of behavior, a change of position. But I see a bright future still for humans.
Oh my God, yes. I can tell you that every single time that I hear we will be replaced by machines, I turn around and say, so why am I working 3 hours more every single day since 2021? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's a long shot. It's a long shot. I don't know if you have any other comments.
This is clearly echoing what we are delivering on a day-to-day at Ekimetrix, because we frankly believe that platforms helps our client to get autonomy, deciding 24/7, whatever. But it's always doubled by business services, and we do not do either one or the other. We do both with the same energy, with the same engagement and commitment to Gauthier and to our clients in general. We need two legs. If not, it will not work.
No, of course. So as we are winding up the time what is the question that we have not discussed today in the context of media and media operations that you have thought might be interesting for people to have your take on? Is there anything that we have not touched upon that you think audience might find interesting?
Maybe something that is appearing in the past few months and where we see an evolution. I think you briefly touched upon it. Is LLMs and how this new technology of generative AI and LLMs are changing the landscape. It will create something different for our advertising landscape in the coming months or years. So there as well, I think testing, looking at how it's evolving, relooking, as I mentioned before, because it's changing so fast that today it might be Gemini, tomorrow it will be something else. So for me this part is a bit of a new territory that I'm eager to look at, bringing new questions of how do you appear in those new tools, how the customer behavior will change with these new tools, and we are at very early stage. So for me, it's quite exciting. Say to my colleagues, look at it because it might be the early stage, but it will certainly completely change the way we do things and look at the performance of and how we reach our audience.
Very
Yeah,
insightful.
and it's our role at Ekimetrix to help Gauthier embracing this new change, probably already happening in the customer journey for on airlines. And then on the other hand, make sure that due to the strong pressure that you have on the financial side, on the operating costs that are quite vast in your industries, you generate sufficient efficiency on the rest of your media activations, the historical one, I would say, to grow the share of new gen aircraft in your fleet. And super proud to say that at Air France you have one of the youngest fleet age in the industry, and create a competitive advantage because probably having this younger aircraft fleet will help you to gain market share over your competitors. So it's a quite complex equation to solve, but we are working on it every day with Gauthier, especially and the Air France and KLM group all together.
Guys, thank you very much for the time that you gave us today. It's been
Thank you.
precious. Renaud, very, very insightful. Gauthier, as always, sharp and insightful. To everyone that is listening to us, if you're exploring how to operationalize everything that we have been discussing today, the team, the Mint team, I'm sure would be more than happy to continue the conversation with you and expand on how we help our clients and teams globally operationalize these initiatives.
Thank you,
Merci.
Federico.